right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Love Story Gaming.
It's us.
I'm Astronate.
I'm Skelliot.
And who's that handsome devil right over there?
You're pointing the wrong way. You have to put. Wait. Yes, this way. Okay, there we go. The camera's pointing the wrong way, so we're very confused. This is all very uncomfortable.
Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome, Paul Helman. It is so good to have you on the channel. Thank you so much for being here today.
In the theoretical house.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay, thank you very much. How are you doing?
Doing absolutely fantastic.
Boop, boop.
All right, so we very recently finished Horace on our channel.
Welcome, Niels. Good morning,
Niels.
Alcifer.
Welcome, Alcifer. We recently finished Horace on our channel, and we loved it. It is one of our favorite games that we have played. For Love Story Gaming.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of my favorite games, just period.
I cried.
Oh my God, did he cry?
I know that doesn't seem like a very high bar.
So,
Love times 19. Hello, Paul.
Bella, thank you.
Hello, Bella. Okay, so Paul has graciously agreed to have an interview with us today
Which I'm very excited
the game.
for.
We're going to be focusing mostly on the narrative of the game because, surprise, that's kind of what we do here. Mr. Helman, are you ready to get started?
I am indeed.
Yes. All right, thank you, sir. Let's get us started. All right, so to start us off, we have a question from our community regarding the difficulty of the game. Is everything okay at home?
I live alone. I am a tormented soul.
Understood. Okay, so a serious question. We know that you modeled a lot of Horace's design philosophy on some of the hard as nails games that you grew up with, but you've tempered them with modern sensibilities such as the insta respawn and the Lazarus chip system. How did you determine the balance between hard as nails difficulty and modern
gaming desires?
Design?
Yeah.
I'm sure some people would say I didn't. However, when I tried, essentially I made every room with the thought that you should be able to get through it without being hit, assuming either you're good enough at the game or you've been through the room before. And once I worked out distances and timings and stuff like that, I would then generally go back through the rooms and add either restart points or shields or take out an enemy or two, depending on whether or not I felt it was easy or not.
There were more enemies in the game that you removed, is what you just said.
Yes, quite probably.
My God.
I appreciate the removal of enemies.
Very first PC release, like version 1.0 or whatever it would have been, actually had roughly 2/3 the amount of shields and restart points. Having spent a week or two snooping on people's Twitch streams and watching them getting rather frustrated and receiving angry messages from people on Twitter, I thought, hang on, why don't I make it a little bit easier for our update?
Welcome in, Urian. Thank you for popping in for our special edition Paul Helman interview. We also agree Horace is pure love.
All right, thank you so much for the answer. All right, moving right along, Elliot, this question's yours.
So it's no secret that we're fans of the story. You heard us gush about it like the entire time. We've described it to other people who've asked as if Isaac Asimov was written instead by Douglas Adams. What stories inspired you when writing Horace?
Oh, lots. I must admit, I've only ever seen half of the Robin Williams adaptation of Bicentennial Man, which I know a lot of people seem to think it has a lot to do with. I still haven't got round to watching the rest of it. I don't know why.
You're not missing much.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, as far as stories, let's think. Well, the obvious one is the film Being There. Peter Sellers' last film, which nobody ever seems to have seen, but it's very good.
I haven't seen that.
I admit that I haven't, but
I'll add that to my list.
We do a patron movie night, so
very much recommend it. You'll spot lots of Horaceisms in it, including the main character, who I stole wholesale and turned into a robot.
I love that.
I also like the phrase Horaceisms.
Horaceisms.
I'm going to use it. I will say, so this is not related to this question, but there are times that we'll just be walking around the house and all of a sudden one of us is being Horace. Like, we'll just start speaking as Horace, and the way Horace speaks is such a unique, like, cadence and the words that he chooses that it's kind of become almost a meme within our own life. So, like, thank you for that, because that's fun for me. Yeah. Also, I saw Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
All right. We have a question from the community.
I love this one.
What is your current favorite way to experience a story? For example, book, movie, TV, games, comics. What is your favorite storytelling medium to engage with?
I gotta say television. It always has been. My parents gave me a computer and a television at Christmas when I was 9, I believe. And as I often say, I haven't slept since.
Playing through Horace, I never could have guessed that you liked television.
Yes.
You have two number 3 questions.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I would have answered film until, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 years ago, but I find in the last decade or so, television has become the better long-form narrative entertainment.
Absolutely.
Films tend to feel a bit short to me these days. After you watch a 48-episode epic thing, an hour and a half just feels a bit quick.
Truncated.
It does, yeah.
Like, it's missing things, yeah.
All right, so follow-up question to that. What's your favorite modern TV show?
Oh.
That's not on our list. I just wanted to know.
Good Lord.
I mean, my follow-up question was going to be what his opinions were on the most recent series of Great British Bake Off, but yours is better.
I'm just trying to think what I've watched recently. I'm very much enjoying Young Rock, the sitcom about the life of The Rock, the wrestler.
Ooh.
It's no great piece of art, but it's very entertaining. It's quite funny.
I love trashy TV, so no judgment here.
I know that this is going to come as quite a shock. This is the first time I'm ever talking about it on stream, but I'm kind of a huge Godzilla fan, so not a great piece of art, but entertaining is right up my alley.
Well, I'm made of sitcoms, so
he's 3 sitcoms stacked on top of each other and wearing a trench coat to get into a movie theater. Okay, he wants to see some swears.
I believe it was in Big Bang Theory when Leonard is discussing Sheldon's personality, and he suggests that he doesn't have a personality, he just has a list of TV shows that he likes. I often feel like that.
Hello, welcome in, Waika.
All right, moving on. In your words, what are the narrative themes you feel the game explores best? And are there any you wish you would have explored differently?
Ooh, I love this question.
I mean, to quote myself, life, death, the universe, and Douglas Adams. I mean, it's essentially the life of a robot, and all the tragedy that comes therewith. AI and sentience, and whether or not that can be considered having a soul. I don't know, that sort of side of things. There's a bit of religion in there, and a lot of philosophy. As far as things I think I didn't really address, it is quite robotic, and therefore everything's from an outsider's perspective. I think that's something I often feel myself. So there's not a lot of relationship things. Like, Horace doesn't really have a friend, maybe Fort, but...
He did have Fort there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Fort also acted kind of as like his Jiminy Cricket conscious, but if Jiminy Cricket could throw hands.
Exactly, as if he was a 12-foot cannon.
As the original author intended.
I also think, though, like Horace maybe doesn't have friends the way like we have friends, but there's no denying his strong connection with the people and the beings around him. So I wouldn't say that it might not be like a very like friend relation in the way we think of friends, but he definitely has preferences and things like that for how he interacts with people. So I don't know. I think like that's just another facet of his humanity.
We see that actually in Mr. Preston's arc, where he goes from just associating, or not associating. He goes from like just calling Horace robot and it and machine and whatnot to, by the end of it, he's like actually treating Horace like another person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, the narrative doesn't like call attention to it directly, but it's there.
Well, and I think in the same way that like the racism metaphor is like extremely apparent, but it's never like, we're not pointing at, well, yeah, you're not really like being like, this is a racism metaphor. Like it's just pulled along. It feels like a very natural part of the world for the robots to be othered and in subservient roles, and like I feel like it's all done very well in a way that connects and makes sense.
So if you said that if you were to do something differently, maybe you would add like a friend character for Horace. What kind of character would that be like? Like what would you write?
I'm not really sure. Being me, it would probably be an elderly woman or an elderly man. Certainly not an action figure. It would be someone he could talk to. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Hi, Adorama. Thanks for joining us.
All right. So moving right along.
Okay. Besides Horace himself, which character was the most fun to write and why?
Mr. Silton is incredibly fun to write for because he's a massive idiot.
Welcome, writers!
Essentially, Horace is essentially all of my innocent thoughts, and as I say, sort of outsider's perspective as I see things. It's my innocent filter, so to speak. And Silton is very much the other end of that. It's all my utterly stupid things. Not that I've ever been on top of a roof naked playing guitar, but...
of course not. Who does that?
Yeah, definitely not a birthday party, Elliot.
I am innocent until proven otherwise. It's my American right.
All right. If you could time travel and give yourself some advice right at the start of Horace's development, what would it be?
Again, to quote Douglas Adams, or indeed to paraphrase Douglas Adams, don't panic. But mostly, it'll be all right. You managed to finish it and it came out and people liked it. That's the main thing. Because I made most of the game in isolation. Although I worked with Sean, Sean lives 100 miles away, 110 miles away, far enough away to not be able to visit recently.
Right.
But the whole time was essentially me going mental, thinking, is this worth it? So, yeah, I guess that's what I would say to myself. Yes, it was worth it.
Excellent advice. I'm glad. Glad the game's out.
Me too.
It's worth it to me, and that's really all that
I
matters,
kind
right?
of want to try to play it as a one-off stream.
Ooh.
I'm not gonna win. I probably won't even make it past one room, but I kind of want to try it.
Well, I don't know. The first room is like jumping over boxes, so you might make it past that one.
The first room, you just push right.
That's true.
Push right.
I can make it through the first room.
Then after that, you push right, and occasionally you push the A button.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, my turn. This one is also from our community. What is your favorite genre of story to experience? Fiction versus nonfiction, comedy, drama, romance, action, fantasy, blah, 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 blah.
I love meta comedy and anti-comedy, which obviously is not everyone's cup of tea.
I love it. What's your
Yes,
favorite? What's your favorite anti-comedy joke?
Oh God, I don't know. What's the difference between a tractor and a window?
What's the difference between a tractor and a window?
You can't clean a window with a brick.
Oh no.
You okay there, baby?
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking more along the lines of what's that one show? Todd Margaret.
Oh yeah,
That
the
to me
Poor
is
Decisions of
like
Todd Margaret.
That's it. To me, that's anti-comedy because you're just sitting there like in horror, watching this man ruin several dozen lives with no thought in his brain, and I'm just like,
Right, I'm a huge fan of Andy Kaufman.
Yes, we love Andy Kaufman.
Who made a career of doing everything wrong, for want of a better.
yes.
Oh, here's to the Tommy
In the
Wiseau's of
best
the
way.
world.
Jeez.
Follow-up question: what is your favorite kind of story to create?
Oh, I would have to say sci-fi comedy.
Wow.
Strictly
Yes.
speaking,
That came out of
Horrid.
left field.
strictly speaking, I left school at 16. Subsequently, Horace is the first thing I have written in nearly 30 years.
Well, it's incredible,
It's
and you
very
should
good.
keep doing it.
GG's, good work. All right, Elliot, you're up.
Okay. What was your favorite section of the game to design, but also which section gave you the most problems?
The shoes in general. It's amazing how difficult it is to stop the player going places that you don't want them to go without just killing them. Because of course,
If you kill
Yeah,
them,
it's-
they're going to try and do it more.
well, the thing is, obviously, near the beginning of the game when you get the shoes, there's the burning house, and despite what it feels like, there is no time limit there. Apologies for the spoiler. So it's just a maze working your way through the fire, and it works well as like a tutorial section, teaching the player right angles and dodging sections by jumping to the ceiling and all that sort of stuff. But it's not that fun. You can't do it very quickly. So that then became my thing to make work. Effectively, gameplay like that, which you could hold the run button and work your way through like Mario, which obviously led to a lot of spiral levels and levels that turned in on themselves and stuff. Yeah.
My anxiety is just going up because I'm remembering that wheel cog thing that you.
Oh yeah, then the mansion,
Nathan.
the car room, yeah.
Nathan.
I have another terrible joke if you want.
Well,
Yeah,
let's hear it.
absolutely.
Yes.
What's green, has 6 legs, and if it falls on you, it'll kill you?
What's that?
A snooker table.
I mean,
What is the difference between snooker and pool? Because I don't understand the difference. I don't.
The table's twice the size, and the balls have to be potted in a certain order.
Oh.
In snooker,
Oh, so it's a bigger, heavier table.
now
it's
that said,
insane.
Yikes.
if a pool table fell on you,
I would still kill you.
you know, I'm not
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not okay on the chances there.
No. I feel like either one would
I would-
easily. Like a bug.
I went with snooker table because they traditionally have 6 legs, whereas pool tables have 4, so it's more.
That makes
obscure.
sense. Yeah. I like
Big.
that. That makes sense. Okay.
Can't go wrong with a joke you have to explain.
No, it's fine. No, it's
That
just.
that makes it anti-comedy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil your track.
No, you're fine.
It's-
This is
it's
great.
fine. We love it.
This is what I wanted.
Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Mr. Helman. I want you to interrupt us with every joke that comes to your head.
Yes.
Okay, what's brown and sticky?
Molasses.
A stick.
No! Elliot! Come back!
I can't be out bad joked on my own stream!
Oh, we're professionals.
I have a follow-up.
Oh,
What you
boy.
got? What you got?
All
What you
right.
got?
What's brown and slippery?
A slipper?
Yes!
Yes, I get it. I'm the best. I am
Gold star,
the
Nathan.
king of jokes.
Gold star.
All right, so following up from the last question, who was your favorite boss to design?
Oh. I don't know. Because there's sections of bosses I really like, and then sections of the same bosses that I then hate.
I know the feeling, Paul.
I enjoy anything with the huge robots. Chap with his bouncing fist. And the bit where you climb inside him and go inside, come out his head.
That was a very imaginative boss. I'm concerned about the engineering of that boss.
No. If you pay attention, he changes size. He's much bigger on the inside.
It's the TARDIS of robots.
I love it.
Also, I really like the wind boss in the library in the house. Starts with the directional things, and then also you climb on him and rotate him round and jump on his head and stuff. Also, that just works with the shoes, if you see what I mean. That
absolutely.
it's like, what can I do where you run around stuff? Oh, I know, a round fella with a head that you jump on.
A round fellow with a head. I love it.
I liked all of the bosses in the mansion, but well, all but one of them, Paul. But it was the ether boss, Paul.
Of course, yes. Yeah, no, you are quite right about the turning the cards over.
But the air boss was my favorite one. I think of all of the bosses in the mansion, that one was the best designed one.
I think that's the one you had the most fun with.
Yeah.
Too.
I also think of all of the main bosses, besides the ether boss, I think that's the one I died the most to. But it was so well designed and I was having such a good time that I didn't.
It's hard to tell. You died a lot.
Okay, yes.
Rage isn't here to update the counter.
Oh my god.
I was going to say I'm a big fan, but I don't know if I could be a fan because I made it. But the
No, the robot's a big fan.
yes, no, I was going to say the Queen of Hearts section of the Alice in Robot in Alice Land, as the folder is called. As
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love that section. I recently was talking in the Discord with you about how the first time I played through it, I sucked at that section. It was the roadblock for me the first time I played through Horace. And then every other time I played it, it was just like, oh, I get it.
There's just lots of extra lives in that section. Pick up all the extra lives. When you get to the end, you're practically invincible.
I
loved it.
Especially with Paul over there pushing his pity button.
Thank you for the pity button, Paul. All right, moving on to Elliot with a sound design question.
Okay, so see, it's still popping up. I don't know why. We took it off.
I tried to disable that. I don't know why it's not.
We tried, y'all. Okay, so what was your favorite piece of music that you composed? But also, what is your favorite sound effect in the game? You know, I love my sound effects.
Hang on, before I tell you the music, because I can tell you the sound effect much easier. There are various sort of glass sound effects when you poke the brain in a jar in the 3D section. It makes the sound of like glass, as if you're tapping glass. What that actually is, I don't know if you can hear that.
Yes.
That's a CRT TV that's on my desk next to me.
Awesome! I fucking love sound design. That shit gets me.
I'm very lazy, so there's lots of sound design which involves just in Horace. Whatever I could find on my desk, and all of that sort of stuff.
That's so cool. Oh, also, I have a story for you later because I figured out where my love of sound design came from.
Ooh, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And your favorite piece of music that you composed?
Yes, I was going to say, as for music, I very much enjoyed writing the house theme, which plays as you go through the house. There's actually 5 different versions of it, which obviously fades and mixes depending on which room you're in. I enjoyed that because it's just 5 minutes of music, and I think I gave myself something like 2 weeks to do that. So it was just lovely writing music and then doing 5 different mixes of that music. I mean, the music which plays on your way home at the very end of the game, sort of a rocky, chiptune-y kind of thing. I just wrote that for fun at some point whilst writing various bits of Horace. And then when I came to make that bit at the end, I was like, I need a triumphant going home music. And I was like, I
have something.
I already had it written, yes. Yeah.
I do love, like, the music in Horace is so good. Everything fits the scene, and I love how clear your references are. Like, things are referential, but you make them very much their own thing. And it just, I adore music. Like, music was one of those first little glimmers of freedom in my very dark and sad childhood. So, like, seeing all of that, like, come to life is so fun and exciting for me, and experiencing the different ways that it, like, adjusts with the character. I'd say the music grows alongside of Horace.
Ooh, that's an interesting observation. Well, dang it. Now I have to play the game to, do a music theory analysis.
Music theory for Horace would be cool.
There are essentially character themes for every character. So when you start off, obviously, there's essentially just the various Horace themes themselves. But by the end of the game, because there's 25, 30 themes, effectively, there is a lot of music going on by the end of the game.
Yeah, I'll sometime listen to the main version of the mansion theme while I'm working on love story stuff, because it's good background music for, like, driving forward and getting this shit done.
So
good.
Going back, sorry.
No.
Okay. Going back to our discussion earlier about how Horace approaches friendship and relationships different by virtue of being a robot, like, he kind of collects these themes as he collects the people in his life. Would you say that was an intentional thing, or was it just something that kind of happened as the project grew?
Essentially, when I wrote
baby.
Play, I wasn't necessarily cynical, but I was very aware that every character needs a purpose, both in story terms and why am I writing this character terms, if you see what I mean. So each character kind of represents the area of story that they're in, which is to give you an example, like, Alice represents religion and, I don't know, sort of internal struggles, that side of things. Whereas, more obviously, the professor represents time, what with his time travel. Obviously I don't want to sit here and say, and this theme represents that.
No.
But I'm sure you understand.
Awesome. No, I like that. That's cool. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, moving right along to a gameplay. We talked a little bit about this with narrative, but now I want to talk about from the game perspective. Were there any scrapped bosses or mechanics that you or wanted to add but didn't?
I have a full set of graphics for a Kramer versus Kramer stage of Meryl Street Fighter, which sadly haven't seen the light of day.
Oh, I want that.
Standalone title.
I have a Dustin Hoffman and a Meryl Streep sparring up to each other.
Don't bite me. Stop.
I was considering also drawing a Michael Richards so I could have a Kramer versus Kramer versus Kramer, but I wasn't quite sure where that would go.
Alenko has a question, and the question is apparently violence.
He was being so sweet 5 seconds ago, and now death.
Alenko, why are you this way? Be gone. We are being professionals.
Okay. Well.
It's okay. Hey, look at me.
Yes.
Do you feel professional yet?
I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Ow.
You all right?
Yeah, he got me. Look at that.
Let me kiss it, make it better.
No, not right now.
All right. Let's see. Again, we talked about this narratively, but mechanically and from a game design perspective, if you could go back and change anything about the game, would you? And if so, what would it be from a game design perspective?
I would probably make it slightly easier. Mainly probably by literally just offering maybe a third shield slot from the very beginning, rather than starting with just 2. Like, I wouldn't necessarily take any enemies out, because I do like the difficulty. I would just offer more backups to people that don't enjoy the difficulty so much.
So would you have, would you keep the main gameplay as it is and then have a menu option to toggle on and off, like a safety net? Or would you integrate that into...
Yeah, I would probably essentially, as I say, give the player a third shield slot, and then with the pity shields, offer a third shield. So I think that would just make everything half as difficult again, or a third as difficult again. I don't know what the ratio of that would be.
That's a lot of math. That's too much math.
Exactly.
One of the things I like about the pity shield mechanic is that it is entirely optional. Like with the way that they're set up, you don't need like a menu toggle or anything. They put it above your head. You can just walk on by.
Yeah.
Which I did by complete accident.
Several times.
Well, my big thing, I don't know how apparent it is, but I really don't like text boxes. I don't really like menus. Like, obviously there's lots of subtitles, because obviously there's lots of dialogue in the game, but I don't like having out of world things which the player can see but the characters can't, which is strange, as I say, because I do like meta stuff, but I don't really like meta narrative, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm okay, like to, like some fancy words. You like Ludo narrative cohesion in your accessibility options, and
that makes sense.
Game design in general. You like it to complement, not interrupt the gameplay.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I also appreciated that the subtitles were very clear. Like, that's one thing that gaming really needs to work better on is its accessibility options, making sure that the subtitles are clear, making sure that there's different options for the sound, and I appreciate that, like, as a small developer, you did that, where even some of these larger AAA developers are just not. So that was very good to see.
When we came to do the subtitles, we were discussing how to do them, and I don't know how prevalent teletext was in the States.
Well, no, we had... I would say, like, I'm thinking, like, in, like, the mid to late 90s, you could put automatic subtitles on your TV. Yes. It was built into your television, and it would translate whatever the was broadcasting on it. So, yeah.
That's similar system to we had over here. We had a primitive internet, like in the 80s, where you could key in like a 3-digit number and get a page full of news, weather, whatever, put up by the BBC that day. But they offered, as you say, similar subtitles along the bottom. And basically, essentially as another reference, not only is the font for our subtitles stolen from the Channel 4 subtitles, which were used until like the early 2000s, I believe, but they are specifically, they're apparently good for like dyslexic people, and like they are very clear. So we're like, right, perfect, we'll nick them. But also our layout guidelines are also done to the same guidelines as the TV accessibility guidelines, or whatever they would have been called in 1986 or whatever it was that was set up. So yeah, that's you can thank Channel 4 and the ITC in the 80s for Horace's readable teletext style.
Well, yeah, no, it means a lot. Like, it's because especially to Alcifer's point, like as dyslexic people, as ADHD people, but also like for me, because I usually have to pay attention to the game, to what Nathan's doing, to the chat. Like, there's a lot for me to have to boop, 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 and having that very clear, easy text to just flick my eyes over for a second, reading, then go back to what I was doing. It's fantastic. Like, fantastic work.
There's a simple rule to subtitles in that you should be able to read it 2, if not 3 times in the time that it's up on screen. So you should theoretically only have, I think it's like 50 characters on 2 different lines, so maybe 100 characters in total. Once you start sticking to that thing, it just, I don't want to say writes itself, but
makes it easier. Yeah.
That's an interesting constraint for like having to write the dialogue and having to write the lines with that in mind.
Yeah.
Does almost by necessity sharpen the dialogue.
Yeah, it cuts the fat. Yeah, I love how intentional all this is too.
That's the other thing. Working with the text-to-speech synthesizer for the voice, it's not very good at speaking in long sentences, so it's much easier to break it into short, sharp sort of things. Obviously, it goes with his personality as well.
Yeah, I was about to say that kind of fits with like the childlike innocence that the character is trying to convey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love that, and you know what? That is, we're going to touch on. We're kind of flirting with Watsonian versus Doyleist right now. We're going to touch on that a little bit later on.
But it's always very interesting to me how like technical necessities can translate into story. Like how the way that interacts in TV and games are so different from what you would do versus like a book, because like with a book you can do anything because it's a book, it's a written word, it's your imagination. But with television and movies and game design, you have these specific constraints which can lead to more interesting story choices.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. I don't know, like that's always very interesting to me when that stuff happens.
All right, let's move right along.
Okay.
We have, thank you for that answer. That was a wonderful answer, Mr. Helman. Another question from our community. What parts of a story do you prefer to flesh out first? Character, setting, plot. Like, what do you like to focus on first and let everything else flow from?
Again, certainly with Horace, I literally thought of a start, a middle, and an end. Obviously, don't want to give any spoilers, but
we're going to be getting into spoilers a little bit later on.
Fair enough.
It's you good.
Not a spoiler-free Horace interview.
The obvious place to start with the life of a robot was the robot being made. Yeah, then, as I say, I came up with some scenarios and narrative twists and turns to make him have an interesting life, and then essentially flesh the characters out from what I needed for each individual sort of scene. So there were essentially more characters when I was originally making notes for the story, but then obviously they got joined together and different ideas came along. Yeah.
Yeah, you had mentioned something about that earlier. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
That's a good one.
Cool.
That's
About you mentioned earlier about how every character needed to have a purpose. That makes sense when fleshing out. Well, what is the character's narrative purpose? It is to enhance this scene in some way. What is the scene's purpose? Is to enhance the story of the robot's life.
Do any of these characters live rent free in your head?
I think they're all me, one way or another.
I love that.
I mean, we wouldn't know anything about what that's like.
No.
All right, we've got one more question from our community, and then the rest are us. Last community question. Do you have a consistent method of creating your stories, or does the method change with every story?
Oh. So this is the thing, because as I say, Horace is the first thing I've written in nearly 30 years. Actually, it would have been 20 at the time. But of course, I am now working on a couple of other things. So I guess I'm doing it the same way as I did with Horace. I do a lot of daydreaming. I live within half an hour's walk of literal huge cornfields and stuff, so I put some music on, and literally yesterday I spent the afternoon in the middle of nowhere. Well, I thought I was in the middle of nowhere, and then I walked through some bushes and there was a football pitch, so it wasn't quite it was in the middle of nowhere as I thought I was.
Okay, wait, I had to readjust my expectations because he said football, and I was like, you didn't hear that? And then I was like, wait, nope, he means soccer. And then my brain is like, he still didn't hear that?
Oh yeah, no, there was no one there. It was just empty. It was just
okay,
like,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, it was just sort of marked out. It was, I think it's like a bit of a training ground or something. There was a couple of goals set up and things. Yeah,
That's
it wasn't
fun.
It wasn't like a stadium that I stumbled across.
Look, we live in the city, okay? We could literally walk to the baseball stadium or the football stadium or the soccer stadium. They're all like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
make
can walk to a cornfield. I think I have to cross one road to get there.
Jeez, I want to live next to a cornfield.
Oh no, I live in a town. I'm surrounded by houses. It's just literally by walking through some parks and stuff, I can get like out of town.
Yeah.
All right, so following from that, how about your game design process? What does that look like? For example, let's say it's time to design a room or design a boss. How do you do it from the ground up?
Certainly with Horace, because everything was properly 2D mapped, everything's to scale. It's done with 16 by 16 pixel blocks, like traditional stuff. I would then draw everything in ProMotion, which is a pixel editor, just zoomed in very close so I could just pixel for pixel, and roughly map out areas. And because I know jump distances, if I want the robot to be able to jump and stick to something, it would be 8 blocks. If I want him to jump and not stick to it, I'll make it 10. He can jump 12 blocks wide. I mean, this is all dull.
No, this is fascinating. I love this.
But yeah, this is all I do then. It's very easy to map out. What I would usually do when I mapped sort of 70 or 80% of the house or the mansion in 2.5, 3 months. So it was sort of 70 or 80 rooms. And I'd wake up usually around 8ish, have a coffee, and then spend 2 or 3 hours just moving pixels around in my pixel editor. Usually come up with 10 or 15 rooms, and then translate them in Unity into real rooms with collision boxes that I could run around. And maybe sort of 2 or 3 a day would actually make it to a decent state. And then they would stay in the game. Usually I might make sort of 8 or 10, which I would think that's pretty good, and then I'd whittle them down to sort of 2 or 3.
That's really impressive that you would get so much done in like a day. That's a lot.
Oh, that's me starting at 8 in the morning and finishing at midnight.
That's still a lot of work to get done in that amount of time. Have you ever considered, because obviously you're a pixel artist, have you ever considered like creating like cross-stitch patterns or like releasing some of your pixel patterns? Because there's a whole like I do cross-stitch and painting and like just as like a fun hobby, and you can also use pixel patterns. They use those for that Godzilla crochet blanket I'm gonna make based off a pixel pattern. So like I just was like super, you were talking about pixels, I'm like I could totally create a cross-stitched looking painted Horace, and like that my brain just went oh. So I don't know if you'd ever like considered like maybe releasing some of those designs for that purpose, but that could be really, really cool.
Yeah, nice.
Wouldn't that be neat?
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. I don't, it's gonna be horrible, but I'm gonna try it.
All right, so the following questions, I would like to kind of get into the weeds of story stuff.
This is the part we've been looking forward to.
These questions are going to be a little bit more involved, but like these are the ones that kind of have been burning at me since we've been playing. All right, so starting at the first one, Elliot, you want to take this one?
Okay. So something we noticed about Horace as a character is that he has an interesting relationship with agency. He spends most of the story doing what everybody around him tells him to do until very near the end. From that time when he meets Ford, moving forward, he starts making his own decisions, and the very last thing you do with the final conflict is you make a choice. For a story about a robot learning what it means to be alive, that's some pretty strong yet subtle theming. Was that a deliberate choice on your part, or was that just an emergent theme that kind of flowed from the narrative naturally?
Yes, that is literally the narrative arc for the robot. It's one of the main things. It's why essentially halfway through the game he learns to lie when he's chasing the rabbit, and then decides to tell everyone he couldn't catch anything. And as you say, I intentionally make him kill someone, spoilers, near the beginning of the game, and it doesn't necessarily affect the plot. I don't mean to be nasty, but you know, he was an inconsequential old man in a junkyard, so it didn't have a huge amount to do with saving the world, or whatever the main plot could be considered. But it obviously I wanted to show it affecting the robot himself, but I wanted it to affect the player rather than hammer home that point that the robot was saddened by this. It's mentioned a couple of times later on. Obviously, he talks to Logan about it, and Logan says about how horrible it is to kill people in a far more subtle way than I just said that. I just realised.
And then there's that
which
scene.
Is why, yes,
that scene where he's going down the hallway.
This is it. I was going to say the last, as you say, the last sort of narrative choice you have, other than to retire or not, is whether or not you kill the man who's been trying to kill you for the last third of the game, or whatever it is. So yes, it was very much a conscious decision to... I figured that would be the hardest, or one of the hardest decisions a person could ever have, whether they should kill the person that wants to kill them. I don't know. Is that? It feels like a hard decision to have to make.
Yeah.
Or save them. Sorry. No, obviously, the whole point is you can save them. Is me to kill them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I feel like too that like that kind of conflict is very human. You know, it's that doing the right thing versus having your own sense of satisfaction, which is a very like. You know, that's not something, at least I don't think, like, we don't know how animals' brains work, but it's complex, right? It's not there's no one correct answer, which for robots and, you know, AI and stuff, everything is binary. So just the fact that there's that complexity and that no right answer makes it elevated beyond what a simple program can fathom.
You'd mentioned that the guy in the junkyard has no bearing on the plot, and that is true. He has no bearing on the plot, but there's a huge difference between the plot and the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The plot is, saving the world from the most British possible apocalypse.
Yes.
But the story is about Horace learning what it means to be alive. And if you take that scene, if you take the scene where he, because if I remember right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when he catches up to the old man in the junkyard, right? He kills him in just horrific fashion. That was brutal. Well done.
Yeah.
He says that, like, it wasn't something he meant to do. It wasn't something he realized he was doing, almost like it was an autonomous program on his part. There is enemy die.
Right.
And even though that doesn't affect the plot in any meaningful way, if you remove that scene from Horace's story, from my perspective and analysis, the whole story falls apart.
Yeah, because Horace doesn't grow from, like, he has to be challenged in order to grow.
Yeah, we see that moment haunt him throughout the story in a way that he doesn't consciously understand.
He's guilty.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the words for it. At least, like, that's how I view it.
Yeah, we love that. That was one of the things that we've noticed in a lot of games. And this isn't a criticism of those games. But one of the things that we've noticed in a lot of games is that they tend to be very straightforward and upfront, and they will tell you what the themes of the story is. One of the things that we appreciated about Horace, especially now learning that it was a deliberate choice on your part, a deliberate, like, narrative design on your part, at no point does the story ever beat you over the head with its themes. It stays completely centered on Horace's interpretation of the events that happen, which means Horace never explicitly spells out the theme, and that, to me, signals that the narrative trusts the audience to pick up what it's putting down.
Mm-hmm. But at no point either, like, are the themes hidden. Like, they're there. You can pick them up and examine them and look at them and dissect them all you want. Or
funny robot picks up trash.
Right, exactly. And I really appreciate that, because, like, sometimes it feels like with other games that, like, there are themes, but they're hidden. Like, you kind of have to squint at them, turn them a couple different ways. Like, the themes are right there. There's no, like, you can see them. And I appreciate how clear that is.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Helman. Moving right along.
Right. This one's yours.
All right. From a structural standpoint, the narrative of Horace does not fit as neatly into a traditional 3-act structure as other narratives. While we definitely identified clear act breaks, and we are planning to do an actual, like, narrative structural analysis of Horace, a more in-depth thing at some point in the future, Horace doesn't appear to sort of map onto the more common story cycles, which is, again, not a good thing, not a bad thing. It's just a structural thing. Was that by design, or did it kind of happen?
That kind of happened. It was going to be a 3-act, beginning, middle, end. As I say, that's how I initially came up with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But by the time I'd got to the end, there was so much and more that there became a 4th and maybe could be argued a 5th act towards the end. I mean, I don't know how you want to split it. There's 22 chapters, if you want to call it 22 acts. But this is the other thing. The 22 was kind of intentional, just because it always used to be 24, but for whatever reason these days, TV shows tend to have 22 episodes in a season.
You're right.
It does fit reasonably well into a season, so to speak. I don't think the chapters are necessarily, neatly half-hour stories or anything. But
Especially not when I'm playing and get stuck in the boot room.
Oh, the boot room.
This is it. There's definitely some 15-minute chapters and some hour-and-a-half chapters. but hey, Netflix, they do.
They do okay with it. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. Why don't you option this to Netflix as a series? We'll see what happens.
Depends on who's in charge of it. It could be fantastic, or it could be like trash tier.
If it's trash,
there's no middle.
If it is trash tier, though, then that means there could be like a little GIF, a little meme of the TV series, and then Horace just walking over it, and it picks up like garbage. And I think it would be worth it just for that meme.
Okay, so I'm skipping ahead since we're talking about it. So if they made a Horace TV series, okay, so like we're talking about it. So if Netflix makes a Horace TV series, who's your perfect cast?
Oh, I really don't know. I mean, I know it's not something you're supposed to do, but I did audition a reasonably famous actor to play the part originally.
Oh. So he said reasonably famous, so that means we can't know.
Well, that's
who it
pretty harsh,
is.
actually. No, he's really, really, really bloody famous. Like, you'd know exactly who it is.
Oh, if we guess, will you tell us?
If you want. I'll tell you anyway, but you can have some guesses.
Yeah, I was about to say, if we make very cute faces, will you
Very
tell
cute
us?
faces.
We gotta know, who was it?
The thing is, obviously the character design, as I say, was very much based on the main character of the Peter Sellers film being there. Unfortunately, Peter Sellers died in 1980, so not him. However, how familiar are you with Doctor Who?
Oh.
Fairly.
The seventh Doctor. Yeah, that's right.
Was that Sylvester McCoy?
Yes.
Yes!
Oh my god!
Shares a similar character design.
Oh my god, I see it now. The hat.
do too.
I just have to say, he's an utterly lovely bloke. He did a fantastic job. It's just, after I did it, I decided that I'd already fallen in love with the text-to-speech voice, and it just didn't sound right not using it. So I ended up not using him.
Please tell me you have that audition somewhere.
Oh yeah, I've got the entire thing. I've got the first hour or so of Horace with his voice on it, effectively.
How cute of a face would we need to be for you to show that?
Yeah, I don't
us?
think I can release that. I don't know who.
Yeah, you'd have to get like permissions and stuff.
Aw,
Oh man,
that would be so cool.
oh that would be so.
That's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah, no, Sylvester McCoy as Horace for the
that's
TV
so
show.
good.
Oh, now that it's in my brain.
I think he would have been perfect if I'd have used him from the beginning. It's just, as I say, I got so used to the voice which I'd been using that it just sounded not wrong, but it sounded like someone else.
Right, not quite right. Yeah.
That and the synthesized voice is also going to keep costs down, like substantially.
Oh, I think the synthesized voice was not very much more than it cost me to hire a recording studio and get him in to get some audio out of him.
Really? Ooh.
Yeah, it literally only cost me about twice as much to do the entire game using the synth voice.
Wow,
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Insane.
I mean, I would have loved to have used it, but yeah, it I don't know, it just didn't feel right. But yeah, no, obviously that would be great. We could do a, whatever he is, 75-year-old man up in a gold paint.
Okay, no, but hear me out. Sylvester McCoy as the old man, though.
Oh, that would be a nice little like through thread, like to tie it all together.
Little lore in joke. Oh, I love that.
Oh.
And of course, we'd have to get Danny DeVito to be the robot.
Get out. Get out.
All right. So moving right along. So we started to touch on this a little earlier. During the stream, the three of us talked about the differences between Watsonian and Doyleist interpretation of narrative and how it specifically applies to game design. And just a little refresher for the audience, Watsonian analysis is an in-universe justification for something, while a Doyleist analysis is an explanation for something that exists outside the narrative. Like in a story, it would be a Watsonian explanation for why only the magic sword can kill the bad guy is because the ancient line of kings infused the source magic, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the Doyleist interpretation...
Well, the bad guy had to die somehow, and our hero had to do it, so...
Yeah, the Doyleist interpretation would be so that nobody walks up and shoots him with a gun.
That's the story. That's how it works.
All right, so if push comes to shove, as a game designer and a storyteller at the same time, is it more important for you to have a Doyleist or Watsonian reason for something in your game? And are there things you cut because you couldn't come up with a good lore reason for them to be there?
I think gameplay is more important than story when gameplay is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know sounds insane. What with there being
It does
5
sound.
hours worth of cutscenes interspersed, interrupting you every 30 seconds. But yes, gameplay. As you say, the real world reasoning generally takes precedent over the narrative. But I like to think I'm pretty good at coming up with nonsense, so I don't think there's anything in the game which I didn't come up with for a reason for it. Some of it is utterly nonsense.
I want Paul Helman to write my next note when I'm sick and don't want to go to work. So I mean, just give this to my boss and be like, here, this is from my doctor.
Conversely, are there any things that you added to the story because they emerged out of your gameplay design?
Yes, there's quite a few things of that. My favourite being it effectively became a joke towards the end of the game when you make your entire way home and everything, and the shoes don't work, and then Thor turns them on. The reason that happens, and it just happens like that, is because I'd made the game pretty much in chronological order. So I'd made the start of the game at the start, and I made the end of the game at the end. So
that.
we were 2 or 3 months away from release, and I was making that section where you're returning home, and I intentionally made the entire thing standard platforming, no shoes or gravity gameplay and stuff, just because I wanted, hey everyone, remember standard platforming gameplay, isn't it fun? Like, just some fun travelling home stuff. But because of that, I realised that the plot obviously means that you arrive back home in the boat that you've stolen, but you arrive at Alice's place. And I had no real way of giving you a different pair of shoes, or there was no one that could fix the shoes. Spoilers, everyone that could fix the shoes was dead by this point. Sadly. So I was just like, what can I do? Like, you're still wearing the shoes. And then I thought, oh, hang on, why don't we just literally just have a switch on the shoes? Fort just happens to notice them. There we go. Everything's back to normal. It's like like the end of a terrible Simpsons episode.
That was a good gag.
Sorry. I do
No, I loved that. That, like, if I remember correctly, like, we legit cracked up over that. Like, that was great.
So, okay. On the subject of really funny gags, what's your favorite gag in this game?
One of my favourite gags, and I feel happy saying this because I didn't actually write it. Dean came up with it. Our producer, he also helped edit the script and stuff. Is the bit where the robot takes off all his clothes and he's told to make his face blank, and then Mr. Tilton, of course, says blanker, and he does a little impression of the Street Fighter character. Mr. Sultan says with an ER.
That was hilarious.
That was really
one of my favourite things about that is when I drew him, assuming the position that Blanca does when he emits his electricity, I realised that I'd drawn the robot with his elbows on the inside of his knees, whereas Blanca actually has them on the outside of his knees. So I actually went to the trouble of then redrawing the sprite.
Yeah, I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, I don't remember that.
he sort of squats with his hands to the beat, and I'd drawn him with his hands sort of like this, but they should be sort of more out. So yeah, I ended up redrawing. I was so committed to the bit that I literally spent an extra 20 minutes redrawing him.
Oh man, our entire life is about being committed to the bit, though, so I can appreciate that.
One of the jokes about our marriage is that it is the result of an escalating series of dares.
You're not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong. Both were just too chicken to admit we're wrong.
Yeah, community member Lauren Hex Machina says that was her favorite joke in the entire game.
Aww.
The Blanca joke.
Excellent.
I love that.
All right, excellent. Elliot, next question is yours.
Okay, so in your own words, what is the central idea that you wanted the story of Horace to convey? What is the primary message that you wanted to tell with this story?
Essentially, everybody should be nice to each other, but it's very hard to force them to be nice to each other.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is very true.
Yes.
Oh, that hit harder than I expected it to.
So
No, you're fine.
So
you're fine.
I actually have a follow-up question to that. So one of the elements of the plot involves them broadcasting a nice virus to basically turn all of the robots nice. Given that the story takes great pains to convey to you, hey, these are sentient beings. What are your ethical opinions on basically literally changing the minds of your opposition?
Well, obviously, well, certainly in Horace, it's kind of horrific. Because the robot society, which had briefly built up over the last few years, is ultimately completely changed. Which is why the only character that you interact with is someone who's been completely damaged by that change of society.
Ooh, yay. That's a really good point.
Yes.
It's also like, I don't know, like we live in a very political world, and especially as, you know, like a queer person living in a very like conservative area, like the idea, just the thought of being able to shift everyone's thinking into a kinder,
bigotry,
more accepting realm. It sounds good, but then like you actually start to think about it and pick it apart, and I'm like, oh, that's actually like terrifying. It's really scary. It's actually, and I appreciate that like you didn't undercut that seriousness, because a lot of media, we see it especially in like big budget superhero movies, where like you have this really serious, impactful moment, but instead of allowing that to sit with you and for the audience to feel the gravity, it's immediately undercut with humor and a joke. And I appreciate that like you let us feel the full weight of all of these emotional story beats. And that's something that I wish I'd see more of, you know, in media in general.
Quite intentionally in Horace, in the last 5, 6, 7 chapters, there's actually not very many jokes. Very intentional. There's a lot of banter between Fort and Horace, where they're like, hey, look, isn't this a weird place to have some saws and all that sort of stuff.
That's my favorite gag in the game.
That's more like tension relieving between the characters.
It's two friends hanging out, that's the idea. But that's the thing, there's no more joke plot devices or crazy stuff that's happening. As you say, it's time for the seriousness of everyone's consequences. No, and the consequences of everyone's actions to hit home in the last few hours, so to speak.
Yeah, and I appreciated that. It felt like it felt intentional. You could see where the story was going, and you could actually like appreciate the gravity of the moment and the weight of your decisions. And like that's not something that you see a lot in modern media right now. Like it's all very like, oh yeah, we destroyed a planet. Ha ha ha! This guy's not really dead. JK. I'm not pointing to a specific film. It's fine.
But I say I'm a big fan of
Anyway,
comedy that then goes a bit tragic halfway through. As I always used to make the joke that I always thought that the perfect episode of Friends would be if Chandler died halfway through.
Hate Friends.
Just because of how. But the thing is, there is actually a brilliant YouTube edit where there's an episode where Chandler dies halfway through, and somebody's managed to edit it. I'd recommend it. It's very good.
I'll have to look it up. Yeah,
we'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Which character? Full spoilers. Which character death was the hardest for you to write?
What, in Friends?
No.
I have to say Mr. Heckles. Well, see, that's huge spoiler territories because it's basically Heather. Like, it's why
that fucked me up.
It's why she doesn't die on screen. Like, I mean, I guess it's harsher to then have it blurted out at you, thanks to Mr. Silton. But yeah, that was the worst one to do.
That was the one that hit me the hardest.
You cried.
I did.
I mean, when I started writing it, I didn't really intentionally, I didn't think, I'm going to write a story where I kill a 12-year-old girl, or however old she is at that point. But yeah.
Yeah, that was the hardest one for me too.
I did notice and appreciate the impact of she basically died off screen because okay, so I've been with people like as they died, and even though it's extraordinarily tragic, there is a sense of closure that happens from experiencing the moment firsthand versus the emotional gut punch of it basically happening in life off screen. The off screen is always harder. And that hit hard. That was I noticed that was very, very powerful. And I think too, Heather is the closest to a human friend that Horace has. Like, so that's like all of the losses are difficult for him to take, but I think Heather is the one that like really affects him the most because that was his friend. She's been there like by his side from the moment he woke up, and his goal has always been to protect her and to be her friend, and now he can't do that anymore. Well, there's a reason why at the very end, even though a lot of good people die in the game, a lot of people Horace like loves and who loves Horace die in the game, there's a reason that the two people waiting for him are Heather and the old man and Heather. Yep. Oof. My heart. I'm sad now. Let's talk about not a sad. Yeah, let's change.
All right.
Are we ready? Okay. So this is our very last project or question. My eyes went this way.
Yes.
Are there any? We know you have future projects that you're currently working on, but are any that you have like planned, that you are like really excited for? That you can talk about. That you can talk about. Even in vague terms. Like, don't get yourself in trouble or anything, but...
No, I just trying to think. I don't think I'd get into trouble, but I am intending on trying to get a Horace 2 going at some point.
I hope we get to play it.
When you do, we're gonna be the first ones on that.
We'll do a full. We'll just play it all through. That's fine.
One sitting.
One sitting.
At the rate I work, you can expect it in I don't know, 2030.
All right,
32?
everyone, join us at 7:00 p.m. on 2030.
The first Monday.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That would be so cool.
Holy shit, that's incredible.
That'd be really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. Well, that is all we have for questions for you, Mr. Helman. Thank you so much. But we're not quite done yet.
We're not done yet.
Not quite done yet. So we at Love Story Gaming, we have
We're
a
very
project.
attentive blokes.
We have a project that we've been wanting to get off the ground, and this is actually the very first. I don't want to say installment in that project, but I feel like it's the most appropriate way to start. So we noticed something about your Twitter bio. In your Twitter bio, you proudly proclaim that Horace is the winner of 0 awards. So about that,
Mr. Helman.
we loved Horace, and we've loved all the conversations that have come from it. This is the kind of thing that this channel is here to do, and we want to recognize when something is truly outstanding when we see it.
He does go outstanding in cornfields.
It's true. He's outstanding in his field. So, in honor of the narrative that you have written, we are proud to award you with the very first Love Story Gaming Award for Excellence in Storytelling.
Wait, there we go.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
This will be the first of what we hope are many to come, because there are a lot of good stories out there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, thank you so much for everything.
Okay, I'm trying to there we go.
We can talk later about how to actually get this dang thing to you,
so you can display it.
Amazing.
But we are honored to present you the very first award from Love Story Gaming for excellence in storytelling.
Well, thank you very much. I am so honored.
Well, thank you for creating this game that we have connected with, and I know hundreds and thousands of other people have connected with, and giving us an avenue to explore these emotions. But also thank you so much for your involvement. It has meant so much to all of us to have you in the chat and to have you watch, and I know it's meant a lot to Nathan every time you push that pity button.
No, because we've had people who have been involved in some way with the games that we're playing in our chat before, but you actually engaged with the story and the design and actually discussing the things that we're wanting to discuss. And from that, I mean, shoot, look at all of the cool analysis we've been able to do, and there's a lot of analysis that we still have not done yet.
Yeah, there's much.
A lot to Horace, and one of the things that we want to do is kind of help get Horace out there a little more, because this is a great fucking game and it needs more eyes on it. Hey y'all, if you liked Horace, go buy Horace, and also
it's on sale.
And also tell other people. Yeah, tell people to buy Horace. This is a good game. But no. So that's all we've got for today.
Is there anything that you would like to add for us or for the community or to the general game world at large?
No, I just want to say thanks again. Thanks for having me, and thank you very much for the award.
Congratulations.
Asking. Thank you in general.
Thank you,
not a general thank you. A real actual thank you from me, Paul Helman. I should have learned that. That's the end of Horace.
An excellent acceptance speech.
Thank you so much for not only for Horace, but for this interview and for being a part of everyone's experience with this game. Yeah, I think that's all we've got for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Everybody say bye to Paul.
Don't forget, everybody, we love you.
And there's nothing you can do about it. Bye.